With more on President Biden's press conference and the future of his presidency, we are joined by Dan Schnur, professor at USC, Pepperdine, and UC Berkeley. All right, Dan, let's start with the big takeaway and really what the most important question of this is. Is he more or less likely to be the nominee after this performance?
You know, the truth is, Alex, I'm not sure that tonight did anything to either help or harm his chances. I'd offer you just a couple of thoughts, though, on that point. One, if Biden had performed in the debate the way he did tonight, we wouldn't be having this conversation. He wasn't perfect. He has certainly had some very high-profile stumbles, as your reporter noted. But on balance, he exhibited a fairly strong command of the policy issues under discussion. The question for voters, and more immediately for Democratic members of Congress and for party leaders, is do they stick with a candidate who is extraordinarily inarticulate, but has a very strong command of public policy, particularly foreign policy, or do they roll the dice and run the risk of replacing with someone who could end up being a much more formidable candidate, but might not? We're gradually seeing movement in that latter direction, but it's happening so slowly, Alex, that unless a lot more Democrats begin moving a lot more quickly, I suspect that Biden will be able to maintain until the Democratic convention, at which point his nomination obviously becomes pretty much locked in.
And those Democrats that you are referring to, I trust, you're talking about Pelosi, you're talking about Jeffries, you're talking about Schumer. Those are the ones who would really probably turn the tide as it relates to him staying in the race. Let me ask you, because there was so much weighing on this, and we were all there in the newsroom, we're watching this for that first reporter question to come. And sure enough, there was that blunder in which he misspoke and he referred to Vice President Harris as Trump. Is it fair to focus on that specifically, or should we be more broadly? Do you think that the public is more concerned about what he said about the foreign policy issues?
It's a great question, and it's the right question to ask. And my guess, and we'll see in the polling in the days ahead, is that tonight didn't change anyone's mind, at least not in the Democratic Party, in either direction, but rather reinforced their existing beliefs. So if you were a Democrat, either a voter or an activist or a member of Congress, and you're already worried, mixing up Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, mixing up Zelensky and Putin would be enough for you to say, that's it, we have to replace him. On the other hand, if you were inclined to stick with him, his overall discussion of public policy tonight would have been strong enough to reassure you. So I don't think anybody's mind was changed tonight. But once again, the most important thing to remember is the Democrats are working on a really short clock. They have barely 5 weeks until their convention begins. And if they are going to replace him, that process is going to have to start in the next several days. But that process is no closer to starting now than it was this afternoon.
The New York Times is reporting tonight that former President Trump was pretty happy with the performance tonight from President Biden because there were enough blunders, in his view, that they could make a deal about that for people that don't pay that close of attention to all of this. But there was enough substance for the Democrats who could potentially knock Biden out to keep him in the race, so a wounded candidate keeps going. Do you think that Trump ends up being a beneficiary of all this?
Well, Trump ends up becoming the beneficiary unless Biden can find a way to get back on his feet. Once again, the variable here is not Trump. Most voters know who he is, and they either love him or hate him. There's nothing in between. That's not going to change between now and November 5th. What the Democrats have to decide is whether this capable but profoundly flawed nominee in Joe Biden is their best bet. And they've got a week at best, maybe less, to decide whether Biden will be their strongest horse to ride in November or whether they switch to Kamala Harris or another candidate. Again, I don't think anything happened tonight to fundamentally change that thinking in one direction or another, which from Biden's own perspective works to his benefit.
Professor Schnur, before we let you go, 15 seconds. If you are his advisor, would you say stay the course or step down?
Say if I were working for Joe Biden and I already believed he should remain as president, I would say nothing happened tonight to make me so scared that I would need to want to convince him to drop out. If I were advising him, I'd say stick with it. On the flip side, if I already had doubts, now I have even more.
Yeah, you're good at straddling that line, Dan Schnur.
Yeah, you're excellent.
Also, Alex, it's a difficult decision for the Democrats to make.
Yeah.
And the worst part of it is they don't have much time.
Yeah, and they're also not really good at falling in line, which is also part of the problem, too, historically at least, unless when Nancy Pelosi is doing it, then they are good at that. Dan Schnur, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
We appreciate it.